Rick Bucher is here. Fresh from the California waves. He's out there surfing. Nets Celtics game 2 of Brooklyn. Led by as many as 17 points. KD and Kyrie combined for 1 for 17 from the field in the second half. Boston wins. They take a 2-0 series lead. Rick, how shocked were you by KD and Kyrie's performance?
Neither shocked by that nor by the fact that you can't trust your TV friends. You just can't. Anything that you might say off air, you just gotta expect that it's going to be thrown out there once the light goes on. So, yes. I'll leave that alone. No, actually, I'm shocked that I'm not shocked, and I began to wonder why it was that I was not shocked, and the reason is because I've seen this before, particularly from Kevin Durant. Prior to going to the Golden State Warriors, there was at least one game every playoff run that Kevin Durant shot under 30%, shot in the 20s, sometimes multiple times, particularly against the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, what do the Memphis Grizzlies have that might have in common with the Boston Celtics? Well, they play very physical defense. So this blueprint has been utilized before, and I didn't have the time to get down to the nitty-gritty of Kyrie Irving, but just at a glance, I've seen the same thing from Kyrie Irving at least once or twice every playoff run. So, with that in mind, no, I'm not shocked, but considering what we think of KD in the present, and Kyrie, I would say as well, it feels like I should be shocked, but I am not.
Here's the distinction, though, because you bring up a good point, because I was looking at KD's worst playoff games in his career. There's one against Dallas that was a total just disaster for him in round one, but they ended up winning the series, and there's a few against Memphis. But he always came back and won that series. They're not going to come back and win this series, and in part because they couldn't hold a 17-point lead last night. And Brew, I understand. I like to give credit to defense. I like to talk about the importance of defense. But in the NBA, great offense typically at least gets a push against great defense. That's the reason why guys like Tony Allen, who was one of the best defensive players of a generation, was never in All-Star games because he was only a great defensive player, wasn't a great offensive player. The idea that you could hold KD and Kyrie to 1 for 17 from the field is unfathomable. And I think Kyrie is overrated by the media and by the other players. He is a great but inconsistent offensive player, nothing more, nothing less. Durant is supposed to be in the Kobe Bryant, Larry Bird discussion for greatest forwards ever, not named LeBron James. And for him, in a critical game, to make 4 shots, to go 0 for 10 from the field in the second half, and to consistently have the ball taken from him where he almost looked like Brew, he couldn't be bothered to meet the Celtics' physicality with physicality of his own, was jarring. And it should not happen in a game of this importance for a player this great.
Yeah, and I think also, especially, you guys mentioned some of his poor playoff games in the past. Some of those came without Russell Westbrook there in Oklahoma City. So they could just focus on KD. You got Kyrie Irving on the floor, too. And that's the benefit, supposedly, of having these two guys, is that you can't over-focus on one because the other will kill you. All right? And for both of them to be shut down, and this is real simple to me, I think Boston's physical play took them out of their game. It's as simple as that. Marcus Smart locked up Kyrie Irving. And we can talk all we want about, Nick, you said it, great offense can obviously outdo great defense. Not all the time. And last night, Kyrie wasn't even going to get the ball. He was letting Kevin Durant bring the ball up court. Again, maybe that was Nash's game plan to get, KD some downhill momentum against that defense. KD said they were doubling him and triple teaming him when he was off the ball. But whatever the case, Kyrie was not really engaged. And then Durant, it didn't look to me, Nick, like he couldn't be bothered with matching their physicality. It looked like he couldn't match it. And that is stunning because he is getting stripped of the ball, stripped of his dribble, to the point where last night we saw him miss some open shots because he's hearing footsteps. There it is right there. Jason Tatum blocks his jumper. And so, look, we've all said we want to see Kevin Durant lead a team to a championship, not just be the best player on a ready-made team like he had in Golden State. And he's having trouble doing it, as he's had trouble his entire career closing the deal. So, Wiles, I was just surprised because yesterday I spent the whole day talking about KD gives you 40 after a playoff loss, and last night he didn't come close.
So I assume KD and Kyrie are going to be back in a big way when they play in Brooklyn. Because I think a lot of it was the Celtics crowd, to be honest with you. I think there was a certain point when the Nets let go of the rope and you could feel the momentum shift and the crowd was on Kyrie every single time. And once KD started to struggle, it just seemed like it got worse and worse. Well, Rick, I want to ask you this. Are we sure KD and Kyrie are going to have a big bounce-back game? Because after game one, when KD struggled, everybody was like, no big deal. He's Kevin Durant. And then you ask Kyrie's like, we know who he is. He's got high expectations. I'm not going to overthink it. Part of me thinks that from that game one post-game, that nobody made any adjustments. They were like, you know what? KD's going to be KD. Do you think that there's a chance KD struggles in game 3?
For sure. And I believe, you bring up a great question, Kevin, because I believe that this is also partly what you lose when you don't go through the grind of the regular season together. Like, you don't go through those stretches where you're tired or where you're being played physically, and you know what you're going to go to. Both Kyrie and KD together, collectively, this is how we play when one of us is down. They just haven't had a whole lot of experience doing that, or the mental toughness that is developed as a result of that. I know we like to diminish and minimize the importance of playing in the regular season, but this is why you collectively go through it, because then you have that resource. You have that ability to say, oh, we've been here before. We've felt this way. We've been played this way. This is what we do. They don't have that in their catalog. And so, and then to your point, Nick, what I saw was KD trying to play physical. And I think it took even more out of him. You saw him like going to push guys to create contact as he was trying to score. And I was struck by the fact, like, watching him, you know, the whole thing that he was knocked on when he came into the league was they have the 185-pound bench press test, and every player, you see how many times they could do it. He couldn't do it once. He doesn't look like he's added a whole lot there. So your shot, once you start to get fatigued, your shot goes with it. Your accuracy will fall. And I think all of that contributed, and it's one reason why I would not be surprised if this does not change.
Listen, I think KD will have 1 or 2 great games in this series because he is an all-time great player. Wilds, however, I don't know that Brooklyn's going to have a great home court on Saturday. You guys don't know this because you guys are all bougie media folks that get free tickets. But I, as a man of the people, pay for all my sporting event tickets, and I go to Barclays quite a bit. I have been monitoring the prices of these tickets. Do you know what happened since last night to this morning? I just checked again. All the prices have gone up about 10% for the really good seats at Barclays. Do you think that's Nets fans super excited to watch this team? Or do you think all of a sudden that's Celtics fans that are buying up good seats because the prices went up? That's first of all. Second of all, this is to me what Brew, and I know we got to be quick here, but what is so interesting to me. Because yes, Tatum guarded Kevin Durant some, but it's mostly not Tatum on him. I have seen Kevin Durant against LeBron James, against Giannis, against Kawhi, against great players when they guard him, and Kevin Durant raises his game. They can get physical with him. He raises his game. KD seems almost annoyed when lesser players, a PJ Tucker or whomever, now he obviously raised his game against PJ, grab and hold and push and whatever. And I like Daniel Tice. Like, I think he's almost insulted by it. And for some reason, it doesn't bring out the best in him. Yeah, he's oddly better when a LeBron or a Kawhi or a Giannis are guarding him than when a Daniel Tice is. I can't prove that, but does that, like, that's how I'm seeing it happen. And I think that's it's a weird thing, but I see it happen continually.
I think that's a good observation, Nick. But I also think, look, when you're a guy that's not counted on the score, Grant Williams, even though he hit those threes last night, Daniel Tice, you can go all out and you can be more physical. They can be more physical with Durant than LeBron or Giannis. Why? Because it doesn't matter if they get fouls. If they foul out or whatever, nobody cares.
That's a good point.
And so they can zero in solely on you defensively, grabbing you, elbowing you, bumping you when you don't have the ball in ways that the superstars won't. So whatever the case, he does have to step it up because Grant Williams is looking like Dennis Rodman right now against Kevin Durant.
Hey, we're going to head north of the border. Embiid wins the game. Raptors getting swept?